Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever felt drained just by being too open with the wrong people? What if your silence was more powerful than any explanation you could ever give? And what if keeping your life private was the secret weapon to protecting your peace and power? You don't know the world your story. Just because someone knocks on your door doesn't mean you have to invite them in. In today's hyper-connected world, there's a dangerous pressure to share every detail, every win, every failure, every step of your journey. But here's the truth. When you choose to keep your life private, you're not hiding, you're guarding something sacred. You're preserving your peace. And real peace, deep, lasting peace, is one of the most powerful forms of strength you can ever possess. We live in a culture where people feel obligated to post every moment, justify every decision, and explain every move. But every time you put yourself on full display, you risk handing over pieces of your life to people who were never meant to carry them. You give them access to what should have remained protected. And not everyone deserves that access. Let me be clear, privacy is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's strategy. When you protect your thoughts, your dreams, your healing, and even your pain, you're not being secretive. You're being smart. Not everyone in your life is for you. Not every smile is genuine. Some people show up with ears wide open, but hearts completely closed. They're not listening to support you. They're listening to gather information, to judge, and to twist your words when it suits them. If you're not mindful, you'll end up handing them the very tools they'll use to try to tear down what God is carefully building within you. And here's the truth. Sometimes the most powerful victories happen in silence. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is no announcement at all. You don't need validation from those who never saw the sleepless nights, the silent prayers, or the personal battles you had to fight just to survive. Some of you are exhausted, not because life is too much, but because you're trying too hard to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand your journey in the first place. You're out here trying to explain yourself to everyone, defending your progress, justifying your growth, sharing pieces of your journey with people who don't have the depth or maturity to carry the weight of it. But let me tell you something, not everyone is meant to be part of your process. The more you grow, the more you heal, the more focused you become on your purpose, the smaller your circle gets. And quieter too. But don't mistake that silence for loss. It's not punishment. It's protection. God doesn't pull people out of your life to hurt you. He removes them to help you breathe. Sometimes He pulls you away, not to isolate you, but to insulate you, preparing you for what's next. And some of the most transformational seasons of your life will require privacy, solitude, and silence. Not because you're hiding, but because you're evolving into something greater. You don't have to announce every breakthrough. You don't need to post every blessing, every moment of healing, every wise decision, every shift in your spirit. Those things don't need a stage. Some victories are meant to stay between you and God, and that's more than enough. When people know too much about your path, they start thinking they have influence over your destination. But when you learn to move in silence, you keep the enemy guessing, and you protect what's sacred. You leave the vultures circling, unable to land, because you've given them nothing to feed on. In today's world, we're quick to trust anyone who shows up, but presence doesn't always mean permission. Just because someone enters your space doesn't mean they deserve access to your heart. Just because someone asks doesn't mean you owe them an answer. God is teaching you to move with wisdom, to recognize what's holy in your life, to protect the oil, the anointing, the calling, the peace that's been poured into you. Some things are too valuable to be placed in casual hands. So guard what matters. Walk wisely, and let your quiet become your covering. Not everyone deserves to know what God whispered to you in the stillness of the night. Not everyone is meant to witness the wounds He healed in secret places. There's a reason Jesus often withdrew to solitary spaces, because certain transformations can't happen in public view. They require stillness, privacy, sacred quiet. Some of you are hurting right now not just because of what people did, but because you shared too much of your soul too quickly. You trusted too soon. You opened your heart wide and gave them access to places they had no capacity to honor. Now, the pain isn't just from betrayal. It's from the vulnerability you offered, only to see it mishandled. You didn't just lose relationships, you lost your peace. But hear me, it's not too late to reclaim it. Learn the strength of silence. Learn to walk closely with God without feeling the need to narrate every step. Learn the discipline of protecting your heart while it's still healing. There is power in holding your story until it's ready to bloom. You don't have to prove anything. You don't owe explanations to people who weren't part of your struggle. God sees you. He knows. And what He's doing in your life doesn't require public validation. It doesn't need social media approval or group consensus. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them create their own stories. Because when God finishes what He started in you, the fruit will testify. The outcome will speak louder than any explanation ever could. The breakthrough will come with its own sound. It won't need a microphone. But until then, guard your peace like it's your lifeline. Because in many ways, it truly is. Not everyone should be invited into your process. Sometimes, the real power lies in restraint. In what you don't say, in what you choose to hold close. Because the more readable you are, the more reachable you become. And not everyone reaching for you has good intentions. And here's a truth not everyone wants to face. Some people don't want access to uplift or bless you. They want access to manipulate, control, and break you down. When you live like an open book, constantly revealing your heart and your thoughts, you risk inviting the wrong readers. And not everyone flipping through your pages is doing it with love or respect. Some are scanning your life just to highlight your weaknesses, underline your flaws, and memorize your moments of pain. So they can use your own words against you when it serves their agenda. It's time to stop living your life on display for people who are never qualified to appreciate your story. Stop offering pieces of your soul to those who only showed up for the drama, not the depth. Mystery is not about being deceptive. It's about being wise. It's about discernment. It's about understanding that some truths are sacred. And when too many people know too much, they begin to treat the profound parts of you like something ordinary. Have you ever noticed how people begin to take something for granted when it's always available, always visible, always within reach? The more familiar something becomes, the less they value it. That's exactly what happens when you expose every part of your life. You become common in the eyes of people who never had the capacity to carry your truth with care. They stop listening to understand. Instead, they listen to react, to critique, or even to compete. But there is power, deep, unshakable power, in holding something back. There's a quiet wisdom in choosing stillness over constant explanation, in letting mystery protect what matters most. Not everything has to be said. Not everything has to be shared. Sometimes, you just gotta let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them guess what you're thinking, who you are becoming, and what God is doing in your life. Because the people who matter, the ones truly meant to be in your circle, won't need an explanation. They'll understand your silence just as clearly as your words. Let them be confused by your calm. Let them stay curious about where your quiet confidence comes from. And let them be stunned by your next move, because they never saw it coming. That's not pride. That's not ego. That's called wisdom in motion. That's spiritual strategy at its finest. The enemy thrives in noise. He feeds off chaos, distraction, and exposure. He loves it when you overshare, when you post every detail, when you speak before the time is right. Because if he can't destroy you directly, he'll try to scatter your focus. He'll twist your words, distort your truth, and turn your transparency into ammunition. But when you choose to live in mystery, when you move with calculated wisdom, you suffocate his influence. He loses his grip because he can't attack what's hidden in God's protection. He can't sabotage what he can't access. You don't need to break down your calling for people who were never meant to carry it. You don't have to justify your healing to those who never walked through your pain. And you certainly don't have to make a grand announcement every time you choose to grow. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to move in silence. Trust the unseen process. Stay rooted in faith, and let the fruit speak louder than any explanation ever could. Because when God is truly building something within you, when He's shaping, refining, and elevating, it often happens out of sight. It's in the shadows. It's in the quiet corners. It's in the hidden places where transformation takes its deepest form. The more people you invite into that sacred space before the work is complete, the more vulnerable you become to distraction, to interference, even to discouragement. Some things need to stay between you and God until they're strong enough to stand on their own. So protect your vision like it's gold, because it is. And just like gold, it's not meant to be left out for anyone to touch. Gold is hidden, purified by fire, and revealed only at the right time. Some of you are feeling drained and don't even realize why. Your peace is slipping. Your strength is leaking. And it's because you've allowed too many voices into your garden. Voices that were never meant to plant, only to pass by the gate. Let this be your reminder. Not everyone deserves access to the sacred space where you're becoming who you were created to be. Guard it well. You keep offering access to people who haven't earned the right to be in your inner circle. People who haven't been tested, haven't proven their loyalty, haven't shown they can handle your truth with care. And now, you're facing the fallout. You're feeling the weight of overexposure. But hear this, a shift is coming. This new season requires discernment. It demands that you rediscover the strength found in silence. You gotta fall back in love with privacy, with keeping sacred things sacred. There's nothing weak about being quiet. There's power in holding your peace. You don't owe anyone a play-by-play of your progress. Every step forward doesn't need a spotlight. Every blessing doesn't need a post. Some victories are too precious, too holy to be placed on display. Some breakthroughs carry a weight of glory so deep that even speaking them aloud too soon can rob them of their full anointing. Protect them. Let them grow in silence. You are not required to be fully understood, especially by those who have already decided to see you through the lens of their own limitations. Stop exhausting yourself trying to explain your purpose to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. Why keep shrinking your identity to make others feel comfortable? Why dilute your truth just to be digestible for those who don't even seek wisdom or walk in prayer? This is the season where that ends. Speak less. Move wiser. Guard your spirit like it holds treasure, because it does. Let your actions roar so loudly that those who doubted you are left in stunned silence. Let your growth, your results, your consistency be the loudest testimony. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to explain. When you're walking in divine purpose, silence isn't absence, it's alignment. It's strategy. It's protection. And in that mystery, there is deep, unshakable strength. Stay grounded. Stay quiet. Stay powerful. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet aren't loud. They don't seek the spotlight. They don't make grand announcements. They move with purpose. They move with clarity. They don't broadcast every step. They build in silence. They don't overshare. They outlast. While others shout for attention, they let results speak. And that, right there, is true strength. Let them wonder. Let them stay curious. You owe no one a roadmap to your transformation. Trust, contrary to popular belief, isn't something to be handed out like free samples. It isn't something you give just because someone smiled at you, shared a coffee, or checked in a few times. Trust is a weight. Trust is sacred. Trust must be earned slowly, through consistency, through character. It's not about being paranoid. It's about being wise. You don't pour your heart out to just anyone. You don't hand over your wounds, your visions, your unhealed places to people who haven't shown they're ready to carry them. Why? Because not everyone enters your life to care for you. Some show up just to gather data. They come not to understand you, but to analyze you, to collect your truths and keep them stored away for a future moment of betrayal. Let me say this loud and clear. Just because someone is listening doesn't mean they deserve to hear. Just because they're nodding doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Some people show up as spectators dressed in the disguise of supporters. They stay close, not because they love you, but because they're intrigued by what you're doing. They want access not to help you, but to watch what unfolds. And here's the danger. If you're not careful, you'll start mistaking attention for intention. You'll confuse physical closeness with emotional loyalty. You'll begin opening up to people who are only meant to cross your path, not walk the journey with you. In a world that constantly shouts, be open, be raw, be real, remember this. Not everyone asking for your truth wants to protect it. Some want your secrets, not your soul. Some want your story, not to understand it, but to use it. So move wisely. Speak carefully. Guard your peace like it's priceless, because it is. Some people don't want your struggles so they can support you. They want them so they can feel better about their own. It's a twisted kind of comfort they seek, not compassion. That's why discernment is crucial. You gotta slow down and truly listen to what they say, but also to what they don't. Because once something leaves your lips, you lose control over where it lands. And when your truth finds its way into the wrong ears, it can be turned into ammunition. Not because you weren't brave to share it, but because they were never worthy to receive it. This isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding that not everyone deserves access to the sacred parts of who you are. Some people are only meant to know the surface of you because they haven't earned the right to see the depths. Just because someone appears present doesn't mean they're safe. Some come into your space smiling, but if you look closely, that smile hides sharp teeth. You open the door thinking they came to support you. But before you realize it, they've disturbed your peace, drained your spirit, and walked off with parts of your story they were never meant to carry. That's why you can't trust blindly. You need to let God reveal who's real. You need to allow time, not words, to prove who's worthy of your trust. Because authentic trust is never built in a rush. It's not confirmed by applause or excitement. It's proven in quiet moments, when you say nothing and they still choose to stay. It's verified in stillness, when you don't have to entertain, impress, or perform, and yet they remain loyal to your soul. And here's a hard truth that many learned the painful way. Sometimes, it's the ones closest to you who will misuse your trust. It's the people you helped, the ones you showed up for, the ones you sacrificed for, who later turn around and throw your name in the dirt. But you know what? That kind of pain, it's a teacher. That betrayal, it becomes a filter. A filter that sifts out the false from the faithful. A filter that makes room for what's real. Every person who mishandled your trust wasn't just a mistake. They were proof. Proof that not everyone deserves access to the most vulnerable parts of your life. So stop blaming yourself for trusting people who weren't ready for your honesty. Don't carry the weight of regret. Let the pain teach you, not trap you. Don't let it turn you bitter. Let it make you better, wiser, stronger, more intentional with who gets past your gate. There's a difference between isolation and discernment. You're not withdrawing because you're cold or heartless. You're finally realizing how valuable your heart is. And now, you're choosing to protect it. You've cried enough tears over wounds that wouldn't exist if you hadn't handed over trust too quickly. You've lost countless nights of sleep wrestling with opinions that only had power because you gave them space in your spirit. That season is over. It's time to become more selective, to treat your trust like gold, something rare, something earned, never handed out casually. You don't need a crowd to feel whole. You need a true circle, a few who genuinely care. And even in that small circle, you still need discernment. Because the enemy doesn't always come looking like a threat. Sometimes he arrives wrapped in familiarity, wearing a smile, laughing at old jokes, recalling shared memories. But time always tells the truth. Trust God to reveal what's hidden. Trust Him to confirm who's truly for you. Because if you keep opening your heart to the wrong people, you'll keep bleeding in spaces that were never meant to hold your healing. An infection grows when you place your wounds in unclean hands. So be wise in this season. Guard your peace like it's treasure. Guard your name like it's legacy. Guard your oil, because what you carry is sacred and not everyone is meant to touch it. Not because you're afraid, no, not at all, but because you finally understand your worth. When something is truly valuable, it demands protection. When something is sacred, it must be shielded from casual hands. Trust isn't something you toss around like a free sample. It's a treasure. And like all treasures, it must be earned, not handed out. Let people show you who they really are. Let their actions speak louder than their words. Let the silence test their intentions. Because true trust isn't something you talk about. It's something you prove. Sometimes, the most dangerous mistake you can make is letting someone get too close, too fast. Because not everyone standing beside you is genuinely cheering you on. Some are only there to take notes. They're not celebrating your success. They're quietly comparing, secretly competing, waiting for the moment they can flip your joy into their jealousy. The more you reveal, the more vulnerable you become to hidden agendas. Your light shouldn't be dimmed by someone else's envy, but when you expose too much, it gives them fuel. That's why you've got to stop handing out personal details to people who haven't shown you their heart. Stop giving your vision away like it's common. Your calling isn't meant for public consumption. We've got to stop mistaking proximity for purpose. Just because someone is around doesn't mean they're aligned with you. Some of the people closest to you are quietly hoping you'll stumble, even while smiling right at you. That's why discretion isn't just smart, it's essential. You got to protect your next step. Guard your progress. Shield your breakthroughs until they're so strong, so undeniable, that not even the biggest lie can shake them. Wait until your fruit is visible, so real, so evident, that even gossip loses its grip. Because here's the truth. No one can destroy what they don't know exists. But when the wrong people gain access, they don't just observe your life. They disrupt it. They become the very architects of your distractions, building confusion out of the details you gave them. They'll smile at your dreams, not because they believe in them, but because they're looking for cracks, waiting for the right moment to delay or derail what you're building. They'll clap while you're laying bricks, but the moment your back is turned, they'll poke holes in your foundation. That's why silence is powerful, not as a means of secrecy, but as a strategy. It's not about hiding. It's about protecting. You don't have to announce every decision or explain every next move. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay quiet and let the results speak. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let the noise swirl around what they don't understand. Because while they're busy watching shadows and forming opinions based on fragments, God is shaping something with substance. Some of the attacks you've been experiencing, some of the confusion, the emotional chaos, the betrayal, it didn't just come out of thin air. It came from giving access to someone who was never supposed to hold your truth. You handed over a backstage pass to someone who should have never been allowed beyond the balcony. And now, you're left dealing with the emotional wreckage of conversations that were never meant to happen. That's why discernment isn't just useful, it's vital. You don't just need to pray for open doors. You need to pray for boundaries. Don't just ask for elevation. Ask for isolation when it's necessary for your growth. Everyone wants the crown, but few understand the weight it brings. The higher you climb, the more you realize how essential silence becomes. It's no longer about the applause, it's about alignment. You stop craving attention and start valuing peace. You begin to see that some places God is calling you to, some levels of purpose, clarity, and calling cannot coexist with noise. They require stillness. They require solitude. They require sacred space where only you and God can walk. Some places God is leading you to require more than silence. They require secrecy. They demand you hold your tongue, resist the urge to announce, and trust in His perfect timing. In a world that constantly pressures us to post, to share, to expose every step, it's easy to believe that visibility equals value. But the truth is, some of the most powerful growth happens in private. Some of the most meaningful victories are meant to be experienced quietly, between you and God. Not because you're hiding them, but because you're honoring them. Not every breakthrough needs a broadcast. Not every door needs to be knocked on with fanfare. Some doors open softly, without applause or attention, and you've got to be wise enough to step through them without waking the crowd. Because the crowd, they're unpredictable. One moment, they're cheering your name. The next, they're turning against you. The same voices that once shouted, "Hosanna," can easily become the ones yelling, "Crucify him." That's the danger of living for the crowd. Their loyalty is fleeting, and their motives are often unclear. Let me remind you, jealousy is real. Envy is real. And most of the time, it doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who are closest to your story. The ones who had a front row seat to your struggle. The ones who saw you at rock bottom, who witnessed your pain, your healing, your climb. Now that you're glowing, they can't handle the light. Now that you're standing strong, they feel threatened by the shift. That's why you've got to stop begging for applause. Stop expecting people to celebrate your elevation if they couldn't even acknowledge your valley. If they couldn't walk with you in your brokenness, they have no place at your table in victory. You must arrive at a place where your inner peace speaks louder than public approval. A place where your choices aren't dictated by who's watching, but are firmly rooted in what God is whispering. Because once you begin walking fully in your calling, you'll start to see that exposure isn't always a blessing. It can be a weapon. You become more aware that not everyone around you has pure intentions. And the last thing you want to do is hand ammunition to people who only showed up to tear down your purpose. Just because someone calls you friend doesn't mean they're qualified to hear your fears. And just because someone follows you doesn't mean they're aligned with your future. It's crucial to learn how to separate mere presence from true purpose. Don't mistake proximity for permission. Just because they're nearby doesn't mean they belong in your circle. Don't allow guilt to make you vulnerable. Don't let loneliness tempt you into being careless with sacred things. Some people are meant for a moment, not a lifetime. And when you try to make temporary people permanent, you invite unnecessary pain and poison into your progress. The next level you're stepping into will require more than talent or drive. It will require protection. Your next season is not for display. It demands silence, not out of fear, but because you finally understand the quiet power of privacy. There is wisdom in secrecy, and there's safety in the unseen. Sometimes, your biggest breakthroughs are birthed in obedience, not in applause. There comes a time when you must realize that not everyone is meant to carry the weight of your truth. Not everyone is ready to witness the full measure of who you are becoming. Some people simply cannot handle the magnitude of your calling or the depth of your anointing. And that's okay. So stop apologizing for guarding your growth. Stop explaining what God is cultivating in you to those who couldn't see your value before the transformation even began. True growth often requires silence. Real elevation demands distance. And when God begins a new thing in your life, the worst thing you can do is rush back to share it with the same people who once held you back. You don't owe anyone a detailed explanation of how you're healing. You don't have to justify why you've outgrown certain people, places, or patterns that once felt familiar. When God begins to elevate you, not every goodbye will be dramatic. Some will be quiet. Some boundaries will exist only in your heart. And that's more than okay. In today's world, people often confuse distance with disrespect, but that's a misunderstanding rooted in insecurity. Discernment, at times, requires distance. Growth, real, lasting, soul-deep growth, often comes with silence and separation. You can love people without letting them too close. You can be full of grace without being fully accessible. You can be deeply connected to God while being completely unavailable to unnecessary drama. Just because you don't share every moment doesn't mean the moment isn't real. Just because they didn't hear about it doesn't mean it didn't happen. There are people out there waiting not to celebrate your plans, but to sabotage them. Some are eager to know your heart, not to support it, but to break it. Not everyone is listening to love you. Some are simply gathering intel. That's why silence can no longer just be your shield. It must become your strategy. You're not hiding because you're afraid. You're protecting what's growing because you're wise. You're not retreating in fear. You're moving in strength. The truth is, the enemy can't strike what he can't see. He can't interfere with a process he's unaware of. That's why, when God is birthing something new in your spirit, he often whispers, keep it covered. Not forever, just until it's ready. Just until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Some blessings arrive like a newborn. They require nurture, warmth, and protection. If you expose them too early, you risk allowing doubt, envy, or attack to creep in and damage what was still in the making. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is step back, go quiet, and let God finish what He started. There are seasons where you'll need to disappear, not because you're broken, but because you're rebuilding. You'll go low, not because you're weak, but because you're growing roots that can't be shaken. Let them assume you've gone cold. Let them think you've lost your fire, when in truth, you're in the furnace being refined into something unshakable. Stop performing for people who only applaud your downfall. Stop explaining your path to those who were never meant to walk it with you. You've outgrown the need for approval. You've graduated from craving validation. And here's the truth. When people can't reach you, they'll try to rewrite your story. When they lose access, they invent assumptions. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Because what's coming next in your life? It's not for them. And it was never meant to be put on display. It doesn't need to be explained. What God is about to do in your life will be so undeniable. Your silence alone will echo louder than any opinion spoken against you. This season is not about defending your past or proving your worth. It's not about explaining your boundaries or rehashing who misunderstood you. You've already been there, done that. Now it's about protecting your next step. Walking in faith, not fear. Moving with strategy, not seeking validation. Some of the most powerful victories won't be seen on a stage. They'll happen in private. Some of your most treasured blessings will come wrapped in secrecy, away from noise and attention. Why? Because when God blesses you behind the scenes, no gossip can touch it. No slander can reverse it. The battle is no longer about reacting or responding. You don't need to defend yourself against what was said, who betrayed you, or why you walked away. Let God take care of that. Let Him be your vindication. When God steps in to lift you up, He does it in a way that removes all doubt. No one can claim the credit. Not their influence. Not their stage. Not their approval. Just God. And when you reach that place where your growth is too sacred to be shared casually, something shifts inside. You no longer want to make announcements. You want alignment. You no longer crave attention. You crave anointing. You've wept behind closed doors, endured betrayal in silence, and wasted far too much time giving access to people who only wanted entertainment, not understanding. You're not an open book anymore. You are a sealed chapter, protected, preserved, and positioned by God for the exact moment He chooses to reveal you. So be still, stay planted, and let your life do the talking. Let your consistency be your confirmation. Let your peace be your proof. Let your discipline stand as your defense. Because silence is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It is wisdom refined. It is maturity embodied. And once you learn to walk in silence, your enemies can't follow your path. Your critics can't match your pace. And their weapons can't hit what they can't see. So, trust the power of your quiet steps. Let your silence carry your strength. Because in this season, that's exactly where your victory is hidden. Wishing you peace, strength, and unstoppable blessings. Stay grounded, stay faithful, and don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more powerful insights to fuel your journey.